names don't mean anything, but thanks for listening. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome to We Say Things, episode 26, sponsored by absolutely nobody. My name is Sunsfan, joined by Cinder. And how are you doing today?
Great.
You just woke up again, Cinder, and I'm so sorry. You had to wake up an hour earlier for the next 6-ish months. How does that feel?
Yeah, very great. I'm okay. Don't worry.
Good. You know what's gonna...
So here's what happened, right? So we changed in Europe. We changed from summertime to wintertime. And in Arizona, they change from something to something, but it doesn't make a difference, and it's really confusing. So, basically the result of that is that we will start 1 hour earlier for people in Europe.
So can I explain this in a way that...
Sometimes earlier for some people in the US and sometimes not, and they have to figure it out. So there you go.
So we did this live on stream last week where I was trying to figure out the time zone stuff, and I was kind of confused, and everyone in chat was berating me for being an idiot. And it turned out that they were the idiots, as usual, Cinderin.
I find that hard to believe.
So here's the thing. This is why it's confusing. So the show typically starts at 2 a.m. PST. That's Pacific Standard, which was 11 a.m. CEST, right? You guys go to 10 a.m., so I understand there's an hour difference now than before. But when we change, a.k.a. America, okay, to daylight savings or whatever the opposite is, I can never remember which one it is, Arizona technically never changes. People change to us and away from us. So we technically are aligned with Pacific right now for like 6 months. And then when we change in like a couple of weeks or whatever it is, we're aligned with Mountain Standard. But it's still Arizona time. We never have to reset our clocks. Does that make sense?
So you're the Greenwich of the US.
Whatever that means, sure.
Well, have you heard of GMT?
Yes.
It's like the universal time measurement of the world.
Yes.
That's Greenwich Mean Time. That's a line that goes through Greenwich, which is a city in England. And kind of everybody adjusts to them, right?
That's cool.
I actually don't know what they do about summertime, but I think when it's summertime in Europe, our time is GMT plus 2, and when it's not, it's GMT plus 1. I'm pretty sure. So I think that's GMT stays the same, but I could be wrong about
Hopefully
that.
One day we won't have to deal with this
Maybe
anymore.
their time changes too. I don't fucking know.
You know what'll wake you up, Cinderin, and what'll make you forget up at this terrible conversation we started this podcast with, and just everyone's turned it off by now. But
time zones are always super confusing and should be eliminated. Oh, okay, we can keep time zones, just not changes.
You know, why don't you go on a rant? This could be your rant for once.
My rant? Time zone confusing, very bad. I'm big angry. Please stop changing the time. Just keep it as it is. Who needs to save an hour of electricity anymore? It's outdated. It's obsolete. Kill it already. Thank you.
Wow, I felt so much aggression in your voice. I've never heard you so angry in my life.
I was actually really upset. Could you imagine getting up today? I was so tired and I had to do it for this, because if I got up at my normal time, you were like, it's too late, which it really would have been. So I understand that.
It's not me being a melodramatic piece of garbage. 3 a.m. is a little late. You know, I'd like to get to bed at some point, but we'll see how it goes in the future, Cinder. But this will wake you up, I promise. We got some reviews. How about you take a couple of them?
Sure. Okay. All right.
Please do me the honors. There's 4 reviews. By the way, I just want to give
one of them is long.
I just want to say there were a couple reviews that, thanks to you, of course, were 4-star reviews that I will not be reading because they're 4-star reviews. And then there was one person that said they gave us a 4-star review that actually gave us a 1-star review. Fuck you. Cinderin, read these 5-star great reviews of this podcast.
Wait, okay. Give me a second. Were none of the 4-star reviews good?
No, I'm not. I refuse to read them.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's very... Okay, Slacks has you figured out. Slacks was right the whole time. Okay. I'll read the bottom 2.
Sure.
Actually, no. I'll read the top and the bottom one.
Whatever you want.
We got one that says less than 3.
That's a
from Harsh Haas via Apple Podcast. Totally not a throwaway account. Okay.
I'm sure
Sunsfan ASMR voice puts me to sleep, and since Sinner never speaks, I am able to fall asleep. Thank you for the great podcast. Always look forward to the next one. Yeah, sleeping is great. So maybe if this helps you fall asleep a lot, you could play back our old episodes and fall asleep. Maybe you can find like your favorite one where Sunsfan talks for like 5 minutes straight, and then you could fall asleep to that every night.
That's great.
2K Scrubby. This is absolutely also not a...
Can you go away from your mic just a bit? It's a little too intense right now. That rant really got you excited.
You wanted the rant, now you got it. Now you don't like it anymore. Okay.
Take it.
All right. So 2K Scrubby. It sounds like another throwaway. We're very important to you guys. Tuesday Pick Me Up podcast. Good podcast for getting me into Tuesday morning work. I have to drink extra coffee so Sin doesn't put me to sleep. Wait, now it's my turn during each episode. And when it's finished, I have so much energy from all the coffee, I get actual work done. Thanks, guys, and I can't wait to hear the incoming rant about the Suns drama at the start of next episode.
Oh, he's got it. Too
bad. We were talking about time zones, which is way more important than fucking basketball.
You didn't read the outline in its completion, Cinder, because there's
I
definitely
know you
want to.
I know you want to talk about it, but I will interrupt you.
Yes. With
anytime you start talking about basketball, I will bring it over to time zones.
God, nobody wants to hear that, Cinder. All right, another review from Marcus RZ from Denmark. You didn't want to read your own.
There's a Danish one. I didn't see that until now. That's
looking
fine.
Looking forward to thus every week. So I've been thinking of what funny thing I should say in my review for a while now. I can't remember it. Great podcast. Cinder, you've always been my favorite Dota person. Well, maybe except Dendy.
Oh, okay. I'll take a second place to Dendy.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marcus.
Next review and last one from Ivan Ches G from Mexico. Bueno, 5-star review. I love going to work on Tuesdays because that is the day that I listen to the podcast instead of working. The duo of Sunsfan and Cinder is great. They have great chemistry. I love the dynamic on podcast, which goes something like this. Sunsfan will start a topic, give his opinion, make some random rants, and then ask Cinder his opinion. Cinder will proceed.
Before you continue with this review,
yeah,
I think maybe we shouldn't read this one out because he's basically figured out the script. So we should just keep this.
I want everyone to know so that it seems like
this guy's work. He is a detective. It says further down in the review, and we will not be reading out the rest of it because it will now ruin the magic for everyone else.
Cinderin will proceed to answer using his brain, good logic, and well thought out arguments. If Sunsfan agrees, he will say something like, "I agree, good sir," and move on to the next topic. If Sunsfan disagrees, he will say something like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you! You are so fucking stupid. No disrespect," and move on to the next topic. Keep up the good work and making my Tuesday so fun. I also have the 2 shows. I also love the 2 shows where you had guests. Keep them coming. P.S. Cinder, please never watch In Bruges to keep the meme alive. Thank you, guys. Very nice.
Oh,
Cinderin. So I was actually debating whether I wanted to talk about this because I feel like I could talk about this forever. I'm going to try to make it short, but I want to give you a recap of something.
I have an idea for this. Okay? We haven't done this before. I will put you on a timer specifically, and when time runs out, you have to stop talking about it. I'll give you warnings, okay?
Wait, how long do I get?
I'll figure that out right now. All right, let's see. I will give you 1 minute 30 seconds.
All right, but there is something that is worth talking about afterwards that you will want to talk about, I think. You'll be asking me questions about it.
About basketball?
Technically, yes.
I find that highly doubt.
Okay, so here we go. Start the clock. Start the clock.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
So as everybody knows, the Suns have been a horrendous team for the past decade. Their expectations were quite low.
Wait a second. I failed to start the alert.
I don't give a shit. Just let me talk and rant, for God's sake. The expectations were quite low. Even the critics gave us an F for the summer because they don't know shit. And the Suns have been doing very well, Cinder. In Game 1, they destroyed the Sacramento Kings by 30 points, Cinder. Can you believe it? Unbelievable, I know. It was so good, actually. It was so unexpected that they drug tested one of our players and he's now suspended for 25 games. It gets better. We played Denver the next day, which is a very tough team. They might win the championship. We lost by 1 thanks to the refs being awful as usual. The third game, we played the Clippers, who are another team that could win the championship. We beat them by 8. And then the game today, which I was very angry with, we lost by 1 point again. So we're 2-2. We should be 4-0 because the refs again have rigged the NBA, Cinderin. They have rigged everything for the Suns. It's a disgrace. I've been tweeting about it. I hate the fucking refs in the NBA. They suck.
30 seconds.
That's it.
That's it?
Well, the thing I wanted to talk about with you is the player that got suspended is actually a really important player named DeAndre Ayton. You remember I talked about him last year? We drafted him number 1. It was our first number 1 pick ever. A lot of expectations. He got suspended for taking a diuretic. What do you think about that?
What's that?
A diuretic is something you take to flush your system. So
okay, so it's like diarrhea.
Technically, like coffee is technically a diuretic, but it wouldn't come up as, the test you take wouldn't go positive unless you drink a shit ton of coffee. So the idea, the reason that it's a banned substance is because if somebody takes steroids, for example, and then they take a diuretic, it flushes them out of the system. But
that's what I thought.
The thing that I'm pretty sure I'm correct about this, but I'm not 100%. Again, you never know like what source to believe on stuff like this. Apparently, according to a lot of sources, the technology is there that they can still tell if you have substances in your bloodstream, such as that. They've just gotten more advanced. So flushing it isn't enough. But they retested him with those same instruments, and they found no traces of anything, just a diuretic.
Right.
But he's now suspended for basically a third of the season, like till mid-December. And it was a crushing blow, but we still have been winning without him. So, I don't know. I found that interesting.
Okay,
it's the
so
7th
what's
longest
the question?
suspension in NBA history. No, have you ever heard
You said
of
you wanted my
somebody
opinion on something. Do you want my opinion on whether that was fair or stupid or whether you should not shit yourself? Hey, what do you want to know?
Well, okay, if what I'm saying is true, which I'm not sure it is, but let's say it's correct that they can still tell, right? Do you feel that sticking to the letter of the law is more important than saying, hey, I guess we can actually tell now if we can see these substances. Perhaps you don't deserve a 25-game ban, which is kind of ludicrous. Like
I
even
think you
10
should
games is quite long.
rewrite the rules if technology changes. That's how it works with everything, right? Like, why are the rules still the same if the technology has changed? I don't understand.
So the rules, they never change in the middle of the season. That's the point, right? So
the technology was developed in the last 2 weeks.
No.
Well, then they could have fucking rewritten the rules before the season began.
Okay, fine.
I mean, right?
No, I don't disagree.
Shouldn't this be like a conversation between the people that do the drug testing for the official championships and the rule makers? Like, we have this new technology, you have a rule that is now outdated, it should be rewritten because we can do this and this. Like,
I mean, it's also possible that there's some substances they still can't see when you take a diuretic. I have no idea. That's just what I read. I don't know if it's true. But either way, even just taking a diuretic, 25 games is pretty extreme, like super extreme.
The question is...
Well, look at it this way.
So,
hold on.
Okay, how constipated was he? Because he knows the risk, okay? Let's remember this. Unless this guy flat out just doesn't know the rules. If you know the risk, you need to be like, okay, I need to take a shit so bad right now that I'm willing to gamble away a third of the season for it.
Right. I mean, they take random drugs.
I was about to say, could you imagine that? But you probably could. But could other people imagine?
I had to do that like a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was pretty brutal.
Yeah. No, but seriously, like, isn't there... So, for example, in other sports, right, you can have a prescription for ADHD medicine if you need it, right? If you're not allowed to take it if you're not... if it's not prescribed to you, but if you can have a prescription if you need it for your everyday life. If this guy has some sort of a problem, couldn't he get like a letter written by a doctor or something?
Yes, he could, but he doesn't. If that was the case, it wouldn't be a problem. But here's the thing.
So the question is still the same then. Why did he do it?
We don't know.
Did he know the rules, first of all?
Probably.
Like, do they know?
I don't know. It could be ignorance. I don't know. He's just a kid. He's like 19 years old. He's dumb.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's like our players in Dota. Some of them are very young and inexperienced.
I'm not saying he didn't do something dumb. It was obviously, you're getting paid millions of dollars. It's stupid to do that. But here's my last argument, and then we'll close. How many years has the NBA been a thing? It's been like 70 years-ish, something like that. This is the 7th longest suspension of all time, not including like permanent bans. That's ridiculous. You have people that beat their fucking wives. But maybe
it was the 3rd longest shit of all time.
That's possible.
So then it's still an accomplishment.
Why are you turning into me all of a sudden? I don't understand. All right. There's people that beat their wives.
It's literally about taking a shit. What else would I talk about?
10 game suspension for beating your wife versus 25 for taking a diuretic. That's stupid, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid.
And I will end with that. Okay.
I mean,
So
okay, give me a second here.
I hate you. I hate you so much.
What gives you a bigger competitive advantage? Beating your wife or taking a shit?
Taking a shit, apparently.
There you go. That's why.
Man, you should be the commissioner of the NBA. Okay. ESL One Hamburg, my friend. Let's start with some dotes.
Yeah. Please say Hamburg or Hamburg, okay? Not
ESL
Hamburg.
Hamburger.
Nice. Very
happened. TNC 1-3-2 over Gambit in the grand finals. I again watched 0 of these games because my schedule is perfectly aligned with not watching Dota right now.
Outstanding. I can give
How
you
did you like this tournament?
I'll give you a quick breakdown because we like to just quickly go over the main storylines, right?
Yeah.
The last tournament we talked about was one where Liquid, which is the old alliance, failed to show up. They were literally there, but they didn't play very well. They got, I think, last place. And they were going to shape up for this tournament. And unfortunately, they got last place again. So considering how good Alliance were toward the end of the last season, they cannot be happy with this. The players cannot be happy with it. The org cannot be happy with it. A name like Liquid is not meant to be at the bottom of the scoreboard, especially not in tournaments like this. Like, all the teams that are there are not tier 1 whatsoever. There are a couple of tier 1 teams, but a lot of them should be teams that Alliance beat on paper, or sorry, Liquid now beat on paper, but they didn't. They got last again. So another bad run for Liquid. I think we need to see them get some results pretty soon. They did qualify for the major, so definitely going to be playing that in less than a month's time. And I think that's the big test where they need to show up. And if they don't, maybe something has to be done. But yeah, that's the sad story of the tournament, so to speak.
I mean, would you do something this early? Would you make changes this early?
It depends, because the org can have different mentalities, and so can the players. The players have been grinding, right? But I think there's a difference between what Old Alliance had to do was they had to work their way up, right? And they did. They worked their way up over a year and a half of playing together. They got better and better and eventually started making big tournaments. Then they're there. I think it's different when you are on that level and you just plummet instantly to the bottom, and you're there again. And what if you're there a third time? Are you like, okay, we can work our way up again? Or you're like, we worked so hard to get to the top, and once we made it, we're back to ground zero. Like, that's rough. Maybe, I don't know. It's speculation, right? I think Liquid is a slightly different beast as an org than Alliance were in terms of, let's say, the power of the name, patience, perhaps. Like, again, I don't know. It could be that they're like, guys, take your time. You can play for a year. If things don't go well, it's okay. We know, we believe in your potential. But you could also understand from Liquid's perspective that perhaps they're like, we're a really fucking big name. We've been to 2 TI finals and won one of them. We are not supposed to have a team that places at the bottom of the board. So we'll see about that. That's the bad news from that tournament. The second bad news was that Quincy Crew, the team with CCNC got sick and couldn't play. So they got a default loss against NIP, and all the other games, I think Sumail played instead. And they also did not do too well. They did not get out of groups either. They got 9th, 10th.
Why was Sumail there?
Place. Good question. I actually don't know. I know he was there. I think he was coaching them, actually. In an official capacity, maybe something contractual, I don't know. Or maybe he just felt like going to hang out with his brother. But either way, they did not do too well. Third negative, I suppose, NIP got 7th, 8th. Don't think they're happy with that. They got out of groups, but then they got basically... Wait, did they get out of groups? Hang on, I'm misreading this, aren't I? They did get out of groups, but they lost their first match, 2-0. Right, yeah. And then the question marks, VP and Vici Gaming, right? Vici Gaming had a stand-in, they have a new player, and VP have the new roster. We didn't really know how it was going to go. Vici Gaming and VP both got 5th, 6th. Probably would have expected Vici to do a bit better than that overall. VP, big question mark for me. I think their performance was a bit unstable, but they actually got better during the tournament, so that has me hopeful that they will get better and better with these new players. And then finally, the top 4. Beast Coast, Old Anvergesa got 4th. They played great Dota. They have a very distinct style, which is always cool to see. New Alliance is still showing good form. They got top 3. Last we talked about them, they won the previous LAN. So very good stuff from them once again. Gambit took 2nd. Their new players, especially GPK, has been getting a lot of praise, but both GPK and Dream, their 2 new core players, played really, really well. Position 1 and 2. And then finally, like you said, TNC clinching the victory. Again, they also have a new roster. They have March.
Can you move
as
your
captain.
mic a little bit more away from your face? It's back to normal.
Again,
there you go. I can turn.
Yeah, they have March as captain now, and they brought in KP in the offlane. We've talked about this roster before having potential, and they showed it this tournament. Very good win for them. So gives us a bit of an idea of power rankings going into the major. I think a team like TNC is definitely one you would consider a favorite. Alliance looked good. I don't know if Gambit qualified for that one, actually. I have to check that. But yeah,
I am happy to see March back in the fray, though. He's definitely somebody that needs to be in the Dota scene. So he's a fan.
Yeah, Gambit won the qualifiers for CIS, by the way, just to get that out of the way. So yeah, they will be there too.
Very good. So that was ESL One Hamburger. Delicious, delicious fucking hamburger.
Lovely.
ESL also had another announcement, which is very interesting, called the ESL Academy. Did you look into this at all?
Very little bit, yeah.
So the idea is you take players that are up-and-comers, not on teams. You have them go through like a kind of a leaderboard type thing, and you have them come to an actual LAN, which will be like one of the ESL ones, I believe. And you have a coach coaching them, hopefully a high-profile coach, and they play in the finals. It just sounds like a cool way to get like the tier 2 scene. I don't know if he's even considered the tier 2 scene, but whatever scene that is, the up-and-comers, the amateurs, into the next level. Like, because right now it just feels like a lot of it has to do with, at least in the past, it's always been like MMR. The high MMR guys occasionally will get picked up. Mm-hmm. Now you kind of want to play in parties, which I feel like ostracizes some people from, because if they don't have friends within the scene already, it's all a networking game already. Then it just gets harder and harder for up-and-comers to actually get to that next level. So I thought this was a really cool idea, but we'll see what actually happens.
I'm looking at this chart for how it's supposed to work, right? And it says, starting next month, you compete on reach.gg, and then it says make the cut, which is if you get top 40 per region, you get into the next stage in January called Team Draft. 2 teams of 5 per region. So you make top 40, and then you can get drafted into one of 2 teams with 5. Yeah. So technically it's only 10 people.
Yeah.
So making top 40 is not a guarantee. You need to be in one of those 2 5-man teams, which then go to coaching and then go to the offline final.
I don't know how you feel as a player. Actually, you can give your perspective on this idea. The whole idea of drafting from a spectator standpoint, from a commentator standpoint, is unbelievable. It's actually like the toppest of top tier in terms of entertainment quality. Like, not to go back to the NBA, but they recently switched to something that the NHL did, which is the teams would actually draft themselves. You get a captain on the team, and they just pick the players that they want on their team. And they televise it now. So it's super, super fun to watch, and it's always interesting to see the storylines of who wants to play with who. From a player perspective, though, I could see this not being something that they would like. What are your thoughts?
And it's the player pool as well, right? The reason it's exciting in the NBA and the NHL or whatever is that it's top tier players drafting top tier players, right? So it's really exciting. This is, I mean, no need to sugarcoat it, right? This is 3rd division drafting each other because the top players will not be playing in this. So I don't think this draft will be particularly exciting for anybody outside of the group of people that are in the draft themselves hoping to get picked. But my question is, who's doing the drafting? Is it the first place and the second place of the cut thing that get to draft for the players? Or
my understanding is that
how does this work?
Wouldn't it be the coach in this instance? They want to get pros to coach, right?
Could be.
They could be drafting.
It's just not specified. I think. So
this is something that I feel like once it starts happening, we can start talking about it kind of, every now and then, just to see how they actually implement it, because the execution is pretty important. But I think, like, from an idea standpoint, this is a cool idea. I just need to see it You know, like
Yeah.
I love the draft idea. I know that a lot of players are going to feel left out, but this is something that nobody else is doing, and that's the important thing.
Right.
I feel like.
There's an argument both for and against. The argument for is it's a really good way for individual players of trying to get discovered and do their best playing a grind in this kind of league system. The downside is if this is meant to help tier 2 Dota, you could argue that instead of this, you should make a league for the tier 2 teams to play in and then have an offline finals for that. Because then already, the tier 2 teams that have been working for this, that have still not quite broken into the high ranks, will be able to play this tournament. Without a doubt, generating better games that are more entertaining and are more relatable for the fans because they know the players to an extent at least. And then they would go into an offline finals. So it's kind of about what you're trying to do here. If what you're trying to do is help, help people that are basically not in the system at all get into it, it's great. If you're trying to help the people that are not fully living off Dota but would like to get there, I don't think this is the ideal way of doing it. But either way, I'm super happy that there's an initiative to try to promote talent getting a chance to play. And I'm not talking about commentary talent, okay, before somebody makes that awful joke. Really bad joke.
But I want to join the team.
Then, yeah. But yeah, I'm just super happy to see stuff like this. I was very happy when I saw it. And I hope it's a success so that we can either get more of this or some of the other stuff that I just mentioned and just in general more attention toward it. And I think perhaps the biggest thing about this overall, regardless of what format they had chosen, is if they do proper commentary and proper production on it, that has a huge impact on viewership. So it makes a very big difference for a tier 2 game, whether it's cast by Toby or if it's cast by an up-and-coming unknown caster. Because, people will just watch just for Toby, even if it's teams they don't know, as an example. So if they get good commentators for this, and ESL have them, right? They have had countless events with Toby, with Capitalist, with Blitz. I wonder if Blitz will be one of the coaches. He does a little bit of everything. But yeah, we'll see. It's cool. It's still, it's still in the idea stage in the sense that, yes, they have planned out the schedule, but they haven't really explained the details very well. So who knows what they're going to do with it, but it's a good initiative.
Yep. I'm looking forward to that. And
good stuff.
Well, this is the big test for the community. They've been wanting this kind of thing, maybe not in this exact format, but this idea of helping the up and comers. But then in the past, they've never actually put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, right?
Yes.
It's like, oh, I want to support this, but then they just don't watch the games. Well, this is your chance to do just that. And ESL is actually putting resources in it, so that's very cool. Okay. Moving forward, Kuroky made a tweet. First, he said, congratulations to TNC for their awesome win. Impressive run by FNG and Gambit as well. A small update from us. I like how he included this in part of his tweet. I found that...
1 second before we finish this tweet.
Yeah.
Congratulations to TNC. Impressive run by FNG and Gambit.
Okay.
What?
That is interesting. I didn't even catch that.
Okay, so you could draw drama from this if you wanted to, and I don't. I hate taking things out of context like this, so I won't. I think what he means, either Kuroky and FNG are on good terms and they have talked a lot to each other at events, or they're just friends or whatever. So he wanted to give him a special shout out, or he is especially impressed with what FNG has managed to do, which is basically after a really sad last season where their team kind of split up and we had this drama with the TI qualifiers where one of their players rage quit a game and whatnot. He wanted to give him a special shout out for his rebuilding efforts, and I can completely understand that. However, if you didn't know what has happened in the past or this relation, you read this tweet, you're like, why is FNG getting highlighted out of his team?
Right.
But yeah,
but he did follow it up with this. It's funny that you caught that because I thought it was weird to put this in the same tweet. The following: a small update from us. We will announce our new organization before the next major/minor qualifiers. The team stays the same. Thank you for your patience. So that means Weehaw, essentially. That was the big question mark, I suppose.
Yes.
I mean, I thought he was going to stay for sure, but I guess with Sumail, those rumors, you never know. But that's
and
good
Matumba
to see.
Man.
Yeah, there's always rumors with Matumba Man.
Right. So when is the next major minor qualifier is the question, because then we have like a deadline here. I don't know when they are. I know the majors are in November.
Mm-hmm.
So the qualifiers for the next minor major is probably mid-December or early January. So
if it's early January, wow.
Month and a half to go, at least, probably.
It takes time to build an org.
Maybe
you got to get them. What colors do you want, Synderin? You want to predict colors?
Doesn't every org just go blue nowadays? Isn't that what you do?
So you look at all the colors that all the teams do. The question is, are you looking just for Dota right now, or are you thinking global esports?
Well, there is also the other possibility that they try to build their own thing and they don't like it, or they realize there's too much administration or it's too much of a hassle, and they're just like, you know what, we had this idea, we don't do it, and they find something else. That is also a possibility, right? Because, I mean, once you've made this decision, you can't just backtrack and be like, hey, Liquid, take us back. You know, I mean, maybe you could, but
you could probably if Liquid's still struggling at that point. I don't
but
think that's
there
the
is
case.
Obviously there are a few, arguably only very few bigger fish than Liquid, but there are, for example, Cloud9 technically is assessed a higher value, but we definitely think they're making their own org. I just wanted to mention it because just because OG did it, it doesn't mean it's for everybody, right? It sounds great. You get to be your own boss. You don't have to do a lot of the contractual stuff that maybe you have to do if there's an org. There's no like middleman when it comes to your salary or whatever you want to call it. But it is also an extra workload. And either you have to pay people to do that for you, or you have to put in extra work. And that's not for everybody, you know? You need people that want to do that stuff and feel like it's rewarding and worth it, or it just takes away from their energy when they show up for practice, right? If everybody fucking hates administration and somebody has to do the administration, then, you know, it wears you down.
I think it's going to work out. This is not like one of those spur of the moment decisions. This was like years in the making. I think with some of the business minds that they have, I think they're going to be fine. It's all about when.
I have
when
no
do you
doubt
become...
in my mind that they can do it. It's about motivation and how much they're going to enjoy it.
Right.
You know, this happens to a lot of stuff where you're like, oh, I want to do this. And then when you start, I was like, okay, maybe not, you know?
Well, that's why I'm questioning whether it's truly going to be player owned or will it be a hybrid? Because we've talked about this before many times. I think hybrid is the only way that it's actually sustainable. Like if you make a player run org and it's successful, you can hold out for a while to get a bigger buyout to get like half of your company sold. But the whole goal is to sell it to somebody, right? That's usually the goal for these quote-unquote hybrid startups. So they could just start with that right off the bat as well. If Cloud9 wants to jump in and say, hey, maybe they won't be called Cloud9. I don't think Kuroky would be fine with anybody's name other than what he wants to be put on it, right? So it'd just be like one of those partnerships as opposed to we own the team. But
so how was it went with OG? Did they get the big sponsorship from Red Bull? Was that from the start? It was later, right?
Later, yeah. It was like a year.
It took a while.
Later.
It was after they won one or two majors, I think, that they announced that partnership.
Right. It was either after the second major or after 4 majors, but it was after they were super successful already.
But
the question,
do it the same way.
The question again, Cinder, and we're gonna have point system for this. Colors. Pick 2 colors.
Okay. That need to be in the logo together, and they're the only 2 colors in the logo.
No, not there's always going to be more than 2 colors. The 2 main colors that they will choose.
Okay. I need to look up a color circle. I'm sure Kuroky would do that.
All right. If I choose something, you can't choose it. Is that fair?
Can I choose neither of the colors or just not the combination?
Not the combination.
Okay, you can choose first.
But don't be a piece of garbage and just choose one of the... I mean, don't be that guy, okay? I think if I was building a new team and it was just for Dota, because if you think about other esports, other games, it's just too much, right? You can just pick whatever colors at that point. In Dota, the color that's lacking the most is purple.
Right.
Purple with, I think, like a black trim. Black as a secondary color, I think is.
I was actually going to say red and black, so now that's like too close.
No, that's fine. No, that's not too close. Red and black's fine.
You said don't be that guy. It's literally the same color and one that's very close on the color circle.
Because black is the secondary color. I'm just saying don't pick purple and gray. Don't be that guy. Red and black is
not
totally
the same
different.
Color.
Yeah, so I feel like that's mouse sports, though. Does he really want to go back to mouse sports after all those years of torture for Kuroky and you?
Are they really red and black anymore though?
They might be white and red, actually. Now that
I think they're just flat out red.
Let's
The
be
mouse is
real,
just red
Cinderin. Out
on
of
white
all the
background.
colors that you could choose, red is gotta be the most boring. It's way overdone. It's not cool anymore.
I feel like the big
I'd rather
names
have
right now, a lot of
brown.
them have blue. Oh yeah, poop brown. Very
What is up with it? Do you need to go to the bathroom or something? You just really got this on your mind.
I'm just talking to you. So I'm,
See, that's not fair because people think that I'm into that stuff, which is fine because I do like talking about it, but I don't bring it up anymore. You bring it up. I don't do anything anymore.
Look, this is a very normal thing in society is when you talk to people, you kind of adjust for the people you talk to. And when I talk to you, I adjust what I talk about to the person. If I were to talk to somebody in public, I would not have said poop brown when we were talking about colors for a logo.
Obviously.
But for you, it feels so natural. I was like,
it is a natural thing. So is that your second guess? Brown?
No, absolutely it's not. But why am I giving a second guess now?
You don't have to.
So
red and black
is good.
Okay, I'll go purple, black.
Probably.
We'll see who's right. Just remember this because I'll probably forget in the next hour. Okay, so moving on to Dota Underlords. They came out with their mega, ginormous, huge, gigantic patch. The patch of all patches, if you will. This is, and we talked about it, this is the update that was going to make or break this game. At least that's what I thought. Did you think the same? I can't remember.
Pretty much. At least, I don't know if I thought it was going to make or break the game, but it had me excited because a lot of the stuff they announced sounded really cool. I just want to say, before we go through all of this, I think instead of going through every single new unit and all of the abilities that they have and everything, let's try to look at the big picture, because there's too much. Like, there are so many new things. So the big things, I'll give my big things from the list that you wrote down here, and then you can add to it whatever you want. First of all, we have the freestyle mode. I think we touched on that a little bit last week, where it's this sandboxing mode where you can try out combinations, you can test how they work, see how they face up against different levels and other lineups. So that's a cool way of being able to theory craft for people and build and develop new strategies where there's not the pressure of having to win. Maybe you discover something new, and that can be really rewarding. There's some new alliances. There's a lot of new heroes within those alliances. Then there's the jail concept that we talked about last week as well, where a certain part of the unit pool is unavailable every day and it changes daily. So that forces you to, again, think outside the box with strategy. You can't always go for the same because one day one of your key units will not be available. Then for me, in terms of gameplay, so far with what I've mentioned, the biggest thing is the Underlords themselves. Now you get a hero, basically, in your lineup. That you can place on the board, and this hero can level up during the game and get new abilities. And you can strategize. You have options to choose from. Think talents in Dota, basically. Whenever you level up, you get to choose between a set number of different options, whereas in Dota, you get to choose between spells, I suppose, but this is very different because you can't go back and select the spell you didn't take. You've made a choice, right? You don't get offered the same one again. So it's kind of like talents.
And with the Underlords, I was actually a little surprised they only came out with 2, but right now there's only 2.
Yeah.
One of them is called Nesix. She basically summons things that fight for her. They're literally necro creeps. And then the other one is named Hobgen, which he's just like a pyromaniac. He just throws fire everywhere. So it's pretty cool. They're very impactful.
The idea of this is very good for the game, I think. And when you add more Underlords, it gets more personalized, it gets more creative with strategies, and you choose your hero kind of that you want to master. But obviously that's very limited when you can only master one of 2. So I'm sure they will be making more of those later on, and that will be really good. Yes. Okay. Now I want to go. I don't know if I want to call this a rant, but this is I think I have a really good perspective on this just because of how this happened for me. So I played my last game of Underlords at TI until a couple of days ago. This Friday, I think it was. So 4 days ago, I played an Underlords game again after this big patch came out. So I tried it out, and I think sometimes when, this is the classic thing where you go back and visit your parents or whatever, and some neighbor or something sees you and they haven't seen you for 2 years, and they're like, "Wow, you've grown so much," or "Wow, you look so different," and you're like, "I didn't
What
notice that
happened to
because
your face?
yeah, because you
Yeah.
gradually, you see yourself gradually, and things change gradually, so it doesn't look that big. But when you stop and you come back after X time, things will look a lot more impactful to you maybe than they do to other players that play consistently. So my perspective on this is pretty much along the lines of you come back and somebody hasn't seen you for 2 years, so they are like, "Wow, it's so different."
Why do you
So
think
for
that
me,
is? Hold on, before you go any further, why do you think
Mhm.
that that's actually the case? I don't think that's true at all. I
How do you
think
mean?
things actually change that drastically in terms of the way what you're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this. I'm just saying,
If you played the day before,
if this was a gradual transition of some sort, then I wouldn't know. If it was flat out just from one to the other, then yeah, then
yes,
everybody has the same perspective. Is that how it
it
was?
was.
Okay.
Yes,
Well, it was still a cool story,
we're
right?
talking about the
Okay,
UI,
so
by
anyway,
the way.
yes. So now we'll get to it. The UI got hardcore reworked, in my opinion. It's very different.
Yep.
And personally, the way it was before, it was very Dota-like with health bars, with the units themselves. I felt like the art style was leaning more toward Dota, and I think the best way I can explain it now, the art style leans more toward mobile. I don't know if
Yes,
that's a fair way to say it, but that's kind of what it feels like. Like
that's
the
very
artwork is a
fair.
bit more that
Yes.
like colorful, kind of cartoony a bit. Sizes are different. The health bars look like something out of a mobile game rather than something out of Dota. And my TLDR on the new UI versus the old one is that the new one is more cluttered, harder to follow. I don't like the color scheme as much, and I think it's not. I don't think the sizes of things correspond to how important they are necessarily in the game. I think it's harder to keep track, and you add all of that on top of the fact that you add all this new complexity. You added new units, you added new alliances, you added heroes, um, and now while you dump all of that on people, you also change the way the game looks, which
Yeah.
it's a matter of taste, right? It's the classic thing when something changes, everybody's like, "Oh, I want the old one back." That happens all the fucking time. When Twitter changes layout, when Facebook changes layout, when any of your apps update, you're like, "I want the old one back," because you're used to it, and that's very normal. I will almost guarantee you that if they keep this design for the next month, I will still want the old one back. I feel like this is inferior to me when I look at it. What I really enjoyed about the old art style and the old design was that I felt it was very easy to follow what was going on and keep track of it. It was very it was clean. It's the best way I can explain. It was very well designed, and that's also one of Dota's strengths, in my opinion. Is the game is very complicated, but the sounds are very distinct, the animations are very distinct, and it's if you know what's happening, it's easy to tell. I know all of the units more or less in the game, and when I have a board with only units I know against only units I know, I still couldn't tell if I was winning some of the time.
Yep.
I feel like that shouldn't be the case. So something
Well,
must have
I will
happened.
say that, I mean, yeah, I had the same initial reaction, and I've played a lot since it came out. I've played
Mhm.
maybe like 30 games or something like that. I can't remember, whatever it is. It's a decent amount.
Right.
And I've gotten to the point where I've gotten used to it, but I still don't really like it. The UI, it's very small. A lot of people, like, there was a lot of outrage, by the way. Like, everyone loved everything else about the patch pretty much, which is 99% of it, or it should have been. But the UI was
Right.
what everyone focused on, which is the negative.
Mhm.
Technically, you have more information on the screen, like your damage is kind of consolidated to a certain area,
That's
so you can
nice. The
scroll
damage
down.
thing in the corner is great. I think
Then
that's
you
very
have
good.
these Underlords that take up like the entire screen for some reason, which begs the question, what are they going to do with cosmetics, right? I think that's
Mhm.
why they're so big, is because the way that they make money, which, by the way, they haven't made any money on this game yet, but they will probably add cosmetics for these Underlords that they want you to show off, which makes sense why this thing takes up fucking half the screen. But I agree, like, the board itself is extremely busy. You have the heroes themselves that look like they feel like they look different. I just can't pinpoint what it is. And I basically said the same thing that you did. It just looks more mobile, which I'm not a fan of
Mhm.
that art style personally. I know that I'm probably, if you take into the grand scheme of things, I'm in the minority. I think we're both are, but
Yeah, probably.
I still dislike it. It's like League of Legends type stuff. I just don't like the look of it. That's why when they came out with the outlines, when the first game first came out, I really disliked that. It was like hardcore dislike. And this one is more on medium, I suppose. But the actual battles, like, there's icons everywhere. Like, for some reason, they have all the mini map hero icons on the heroes themselves as well, which doesn't make sense. They have the items, the stars that are on like the opposite side that you would assume that they are. It's just everything is like if I'm looking at my timber saw, the first place that I look is at the top for the stars, and it's actually the stars of the person that's in front of me. So it's just completely backwards to what I'm used to. This is after like 30 games. I'm still not used to that. It's very cluttered.
Right.
And then they've got like a lot of the effects that were there have gone. So you have like this new stun effect that looks very cartoony. And then for crits, there's no crit animation right now. You actually can't tell really when an assassin is critting. It's really weird. And I still can't put my finger on the art style changes that they made. It just looks weird. And like the top-down view is different. You can scroll up and down, but it just looks like you're at a different angle that I'm not really a big fan of. And then you talked about the color scheme. It's like these neon colors that do not fit in the game at all. It's really weird. Like these vibrant purple for the shop icon or whatever it is, just completely random. And there's been a lot of complaints. I haven't actually opened it on my mobile device, but I've heard it's, for some people, it's literally unplayable. Other people's like, it's just, everything is so small. I can't speak for that. But of the entire patch, and we're going to get to the good thing. We left the best thing for last, but the UI, I know that they're fixing it incrementally, but I'm afraid that this kind of tarnished their big release. You know? Which I'm very sad about.
I really want to piggyback off that because I think that's a good point. That if you make a big release like this, I feel like this is kind of I don't know what to call it. If you want to call it a gamble or what philosophy you should apply here, but you have a game, you're like, okay, we want to do something big. We've planned this big patch. We have lots of cool content that we want to put in. It's easy to say in hindsight that maybe they should have waited for it, right? But if you are trying to revitalize your game, revitalizing the art style is not necessarily a bad move. It's what plenty of things have done. When you release a new patch or something big, there's something that looks different, so it feels new and fresh, right? And isn't the same old. And I think plenty of other games do the same. So I totally get where they're coming from with this. In this instance, when you make this much new content and gameplay, do you try to release that first and get people into all this new cool stuff with the same art, and then you can make an art patch later? Or should you have done the art style patch earlier so people could get used to that before the new gameplay came out? Like, I feel like dropping everything at once like this is a kind of big risk, because if you nailed everything, it's amazing.
Right.
But if something is wrong, that will overshadow all of the good stuff that you made. And there's so much good stuff in this patch. I actually think this game is very much more promising now than it was before. But unfortunately, I'm not extremely compelled to playing the game. I think it gets better the more you play, probably. Like, you get a better idea of what's going on. But
you will.
It's very unrewarding to feel like this was a game you really got. Like, I was pretty good at this game beforehand. I played it a lot. I really enjoyed it. You get back to the game, and it's like, not only is it more complex, which is great. It's great that there's new stuff and new stuff to learn. I love that. But it's a bit of a turnoff that you feel like you're playing a different game. You know what I mean? Like, you want it to be different, but you don't want it to be a completely different game. And now it's that feeling of losing track of what exactly is happening and things being a bit more cluttered doesn't feel exactly like Underlords anymore, while it still is. So I think for a lot of other people this is great, but for me it's not exactly what I'd hoped for. If they implemented, to make it simple, if they implemented all of the changes except the UI, I would be playing it more. I'm pretty sure. Like, I would just be like, wow, this is cool, and I want to play this game. But this UI, I just hope they change some things.
So one thing I don't want to speak out of turn or assume things that I have no actual knowledge on. Like, this kind of reminds me of Artifact. So in Artifact, we were in the beta, and people assumed that we're out of the beta, that we didn't complain about stuff, right? But the truth was we did. They just didn't change the stuff that we complained about, and that was kind of the issue in the end. And then the one thing that actually, quote unquote, killed the game for this time period, at least, monetization, we never even got to test. So for this, I'm questioning, because I'm not in the beta, did nobody say anything? Because here's the thing, here's the difference between Artifact and literally every other game in Underlords. Underlords team has been very receptive to criticism.
Yeah,
they've been very communicative. like beyond belief. It's like a different, completely different company. Did nobody actually say that this UI is weird? Like that's the thing that I don't understand. Like that had to have been like it's just this thing that it's the first thing you notice and you can't get it out of your mind, and it makes the playing experience less enjoyable, you know? Very strange.
And I'm wondering, I feel like when you make changes like this, you need to believe they have an inherent value. So what's the value of the changed UI? Is it more appealing to casual players? Is it more appealing to players in general? Does it have better performance? Sounds like it doesn't on mobile, at least, which is a problem. Like if you're changing the UI to make it more mobile friendly and it isn't working on mobile, that's a pretty big problem when you launch your big patch, right? So like we can only speculate here. What do you think they're going for? Like what's the big value in this? Because I don't believe that it's just the freshness factor of, oh, it's something new. I think they're specifically strategically trying to get something out of this, but I just can't figure out exactly what it is. If it's something as simple as we want it to look more casual friendly, because I think this is less casual friendly. I think it's harder to tell what's going on, isn't it?
Well, I think that might be a byproduct of making so many changes at once. They could fix that, but then the art style would still be there, and that was the intent all along, is to make it more casual, like you said, right? Mm-hmm. You're appealing to people that are not Dota players. Dota players are not casual by nature. They don't give a shit in theory, and they shouldn't give a shit about the current Dota player base because they don't play other games. They're not going to play other games.
Wouldn't you say casual players would prefer? I don't know. Like, I'm just guessing. If you're a casual player and you want to get into this game, isn't it easier to be a casual player if you feel like you somewhat get what's happening? Because right now, it feels if you're a casual player and you play a couple of games of this, maybe your mentality is just, I put some units on the board, see if I win. Oh, well, I didn't win. And then you play another game and you just try again. But isn't part of the appeal of this kind of game that you kind of understand the impact of your strategy and you can get better without necessarily being super competitive about it? But is the mentality of very casual players in this game just buy some units, put them on the board, have some fun, and then quit? Because for me, when I watch the games play out, I feel like if I don't really, and I'm a player who played over 100 hours of the old game, if I, with all my experience, go into this and play my first game on the new one, and I have a hard time understanding fights, beginners should be totally lost. They should feel like they have no control almost over what's happening in the game. That's my concern with it, is that when I played Underlords for the first time, I think this is actually a good explanation. When I played Underlords very early on, my first few games, I felt I was obviously playing against worse players, right? But I felt like it was more clear to me what I was doing right and doing wrong than now, even though I'm way more experienced. There was more obvious feedback in the game itself of, okay, I lost to this, maybe I should, right? So if you're just a beginner, is this bad? It's kind of, I don't know. It's difficult, I think.
I mean, like I think a good point is after as many games as I've played, there's still times, I mean, many times, most times, where I'm like halfway through the round, I'm like, am I winning or losing? I actually cannot tell. And before, it was like very clear what that was going to be.
Yes, very clear.
The end result. But having said all that, if I can transition to things that I do like, which is literally everything else, by the way. This the UI thing, again, a lot of
everything else.
I still don't like, but I've overcome them for the most part. I can deal with it, but I wish that they would still revert some of it back. I think the one thing you didn't mention, the 5 gold for 5 XP, essentially 1 gold per XP. That's a huge quality of life improvement, I think, because now you can easily calculate how much more you need to level up. And then, like you said, the new alliances, the healer one in particular, I find a lot of fun, believe it or not, as a non-support player myself. I think the biggest addition for me in the game is actually Dazzle. Getting that 5th troll, you don't have to get Troll Warlord to get the 4 bonus, which is the huge attack speed bonus, which is huge. That is, I love trolls back in auto chess, and they've pretty much just brought that back in a little bit different way. But the jail system is what really makes everything so interesting, because literally every day you just look at the 8 to 10 heroes, like, okay, if you can obviously just not care about and just play, and it doesn't really matter for the most part if you're playing casually, or if you're playing a little bit more competitive, you can say, okay, there's no Dazzle today. That means to get 4 trolls, I actually have to get Troll Warlord, which means I'm not going trolls this time. If I want to go 4, it's just not really feasible. So I like that a lot because it makes things just more interesting, that nobody figures out the meta that fast because the
Mhm.
jail changes things every day. And then the Underlords are very interesting. It took a while to get used to how they worked and how to position them and what skills to take. But I can see that, especially once they add a lot more of them, it's a cool concept, and I do like it. It's just like having an extra
I
hero.
love it.
And then the last thing we'll talk about, which is we saved it for last because it in my opinion, is like we've talked about this term before, the killer app, right? The idea of like Gears of War for Xbox or God of War for PlayStation. Those are killer apps. Those are games that you buy specifically. You buy the system specifically for that game. That's how good it is.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest reason to play this game right now is duos. It is fucking so fun. It's actually gotten to the point where even pros have said this. They don't give a shit about solo anymore because duos is so much more fun. You share experience, aka the levels. You share units within each other. You need a lot of communication, which makes it just so much more fluid. You're actually playing a game with somebody, makes it more fun. It's not a solo solitaire deal. You can send gold to each other. It's just, I can't tell you how much more fun I'm having playing this game. It's great. You played one game with me.
We tried one duo last night, and I carried you, of course, as is tradition.
Hold on. Just before you go on, this is true, but it's only true because I sent him half of his assassins. I kept getting assassins in my shop.
So when you play duos, right, and you send units to each other, I think it's almost inevitable that one of the sides will just get stronger. Like, that's kind of how every game is going to turn out. Because if you think about how it usually is when you play solo, you have some lucky runs where you get really strong boards. When you're two people, the chance that you can combine these strong boards on one side over the other it's just unlikely that both of them go hand in hand in strength the whole time. Like, you'll get a bit more of one type of unit than the other, and that will be your strongest side. So I had a 6 side with assassins and warriors, I think it was. So the reason that's important as well is you share the health pool, and the way it works is you play 2 versus 2 every round instead of 1 versus 1, and one of you plays against one opponent and the other one plays against the other opponent, and it's the net sum of health lost that matters. So let's say I lose by 5 health and Sunsfan wins by 6. We win the round by 1. We deal 1 damage and we get a round win bonus for it.
Right.
And opposite if you lose. So you can actually have one guy stomping his board and still losing the round. It's possible if his teammate loses even harder, then you win. And it's great. And I had a lot of fun with it, like sending units over, talking strategy, planning, like, oh, I have space on my bench right now. So you kind of have the thing I talked about in a podcast a while back, like how would it affect the game to make the bench a bit bigger? That's kind of what you have when you play duos, because you have 2 full benches at your disposal, and since you can send units to each other as much as you want, you can suddenly way easier build up for those 3-star units. Not only do you have more bench space, but you have 2 people rolling for them. So it's way more rewarding that you get all of these units. All of this said, I still stand by what I said last time. I think it would be cooler if it was one shared bigger board and you have 2 armies side by side where you can strategically plan your units around each other's strategy and fight
Imagine
another
how
board.
cluttered that would be, Cinder.
Yeah, honestly, I think
insane.
I think it would fly in the old art style. I think you didn't need to change anything. I still think you could keep track of what's going on. In the new one, I would be lost, totally lost. But we'll see. In a way, it's a little bit unfair that we spent so much time and energy on that one downside of the UI compared to how much we love everything else. But I think it needs to be said because, I mean, honestly, the way the game looks, it just matters. Like, it plays a really big role. Imagine Dota introduced 10 new amazing heroes, and then they changed the art design to League of Legends. People would be like, why the fuck did you change the art design? Oh, by the way, all your new heroes and items are amazing, but now we hate the game.
Right.
It's important. This stuff matters, so they really need to know what they're doing and be careful with it. Like you said, they're really good at taking feedback, so I'm positive stuff will change within the next few weeks. I'm just curious if they want to double down on the art style, but try to make it more easily understandable in fights, like maybe tone down some animations, change a little bit of stuff here and there, but keep the ideal or the type of art style that they've gone for, or if they flat out will revert some stuff where they were like, okay, we tried this, it didn't work, people didn't like it.
Even as is, I think Duos has made this game like way better, like to a degree I didn't even think was going to be possible, honestly. I thought it would be a good game,
but
very
Duos
good. Is extremely good. Like, the games are quick because you can take a lot of damage. Like, if both of you suck, you will die very quickly. Like round 30 is usually around the time the game ends.
Great.
That's great.
Yay.
Have fun. But I think I just want to add one cool strategy that we didn't do ourselves, but we had the option to technically. I love the idea of switching boards. So imagine you're playing like an assassin's build and I'm playing whatever, doesn't matter, anything else. And I get a Mask of Madness, right? You can't switch items with each other. So in theory, it would make more sense for us to just switch compositions completely so that I start playing Assassin so I can use the Mask of Madness. That is such a cool concept. Like that's a little bit higher end, like higher level, I suppose. But just the idea of that really excites me for some reason. And I can't wait to fuck it up real bad the first time I try.
And there's so much communication with it, right? Like every time you get an item round, you're like, okay, I have these 3 items to choose from. Is any of them good for you? And if yes, is it good enough that it's worth it for us to swap? And if yes, we do this, what item should you take yourself?
Right.
Right. So there's so much.
And to be clear,
there's
even though
we've
kind of talked crap a bit about the AI, the UI that they've implemented, the UI for the duos mode in terms of what your ally needs is actually really well done. Like it's pretty much not a question.
The duo UI is great.
You know exactly what heroes that they have. They'll pop up in your shop and you say, "Hey, your ally has this." Then you just ask them, "Hey, do you need this?" And if you know they need it, you just buy it and send it over. So it's really well done in that regard.
It's great. Easy to send gold. Easy to see what your ally has. Easy to transfer units. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Sorry, before you can finish with this thought. I just want to say the one negative, because you can end with the positive. The one negative is you can't. There's not a good way to see like everyone's board at once. There's no big scoreboard for duos right now.
That is probably also really difficult to do. I mean, then it's already cluttered enough, right, with a lot of stuff. So maybe they're a little bit wary there, which is fine, I think. Yeah. It's just, in a way, it's funny that in many ways you could say this duo mode should be the hardest thing to nail first try, but they fucking nailed it. Like it's added complexity. It's switching between players. There's communication parts going into it, all the strategy that we talked about. But everything they implemented with this, I had no complaints. I just thought it was intuitive, easy to use, well made, well thought out. All of that was good. And in some ways, at least I think you could argue that would be the hardest thing to make. And they fucking nailed that.
That's true.
But then other stuff that should maybe not be so difficult is a bit more questionable. I mean, mainly the UI, right? Whereas some parts... And now we're ending on a negative note after all. It's just, the classic saying of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But I get where they're coming from. The old system was definitely not broken, but I definitely think you could make improvements on it. It's just maybe you went a little bit too far in some directions where perhaps that shouldn't have been that hard to tell. That's also the feeling we're sitting with. If people were testing this, and we are very experienced players in this game that have played it a lot, and we are a bit lost. How were the people testing it not lost? Did they have who tests the game? Is it super experienced people, or is it just the team that is developing the art style? Because obviously, if you're designing all the art and you know all the animations, it's gonna be pretty intuitive for you, right? Because you know how everything works because you built it.
Right.
For anybody else that comes in, it seems a bit confusing. So
okay, so I'll end with the high note. Okay,
great.
With Dota Underlords. So I don't know what the perception is of this genre within the Dota players or the game itself from just players outside of this genre. But if you were how do I put this? Auto chess for me, Underlords, the old concept, the solo, it was, I wouldn't say I always, God, how do I say this nicely? It wasn't one of those games that I could ever say, I'm going to play this game for 10 hours. Now, I did do this just to get this to Lord because I just really wanted to get Lord for some reason. I did not enjoy getting Lord at all. Okay. And I know a lot of people have kind of been turned off of the game for a bit because there weren't some updates or whatever the case may be. I'm telling you, if you play duos, you will find it. If you have a friend, you need a friend. That's a requirement. If you have it, it will be fun. I've never had more fun playing any auto chess game in my entire life. Not even close. This has tripled my fun factor from whatever the highest would have been before. It is so much better being able to talk to somebody.
I think an overlooked part of this that we didn't mention is also, I think the way duos works actually makes it very possible to play together with somebody who's much worse or better than you. I actually think the mode itself doesn't punish skill difference that hard. Which, again, that's great. You can that's a problem in tons of other games, is playing with friends of a very different skill level can be punishing either to the beginner or to the expert or to both. And in this, I feel like I could sit down with one of my friends who has barely played the game before. Like, okay, if you've literally never played, it's different. But I can have come in with my 100 hours of experience, and I can play with a friend that's played like 10, 20 games. And I can feel like we can play duos together and have fun. And we're not going to be equally good at the game, but it's still not going to feel like he's just ruining your game, you know, or you're ruining his. So I think, again, that's very elegantly done, that you get to play together and have fun together, and it doesn't feel like any of you will be completely out of place. I think a great example was our game last night, actually. You know, like, sure, I'm very experienced, but you had played 30 games, and I played literally one game of this new game. And we sat down together and we played a duo game, and it kind of just flowed through communication. You told me a couple of things I hadn't thought about, and then I can implement it and do it. And
I mean, there's some
great,
like
right?
basic concepts that end up, getting you to the next level, like income management. Like if you guys know how the interest works, you want to make sure at least one of you is getting interest, and you can send each other gold so you can balance it out. I don't know. I find pretty much everything about the duos mode like super satisfying. And then when you win, you can say, I carry the shit out of you, and that's fun to talk shit to the person that you're playing with. Let me tell you. Cinderin got to do that with me, even though I sent him all the good emails. Okay, moving on. Shroud has gone to Mixer. We won't talk about this. We have to transition somehow. Okay, what am I going to transition with to that?
There are other ways than. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Mixer. It's possible, but okay, that's fine.
Shroud to Mixer, Cinder. What do you think? Shroud, of course, is a famous Counter-Strike player from back in the day on Cloud9, FPS game player, huge streamer. Like, I don't know. I'm not a big Twitch stream watcher. Like, I watch occasionally, not other games. It's usually like Dota or Underlords or something. But the few people that I will watch, so I consider them huge. Well, of course, I've heard of Ninja, so I knew how big he was, but I never watched him. The other one is Shroud, because he is fucking incredibly talented at FPS games. Like, I don't know if you used to know this, but I used to be.
Okay, here we fucking go again.
But no, like having that eye for like the FPS thing, it's like when I'm watching him, I'm like, dude, this guy, is he not? How is this even remotely possible for a human being to do? It's actually incredible. But anyway, that's another story. And then the third one, I would say in the popularity standpoint, I know there's more than this, but Dr. Disrespect is like next on my list. Like, is he? Okay. How much money does he need to go over to Mixer? But what did you think about Shroud switching?
Well, we had this talk, right? We talked, I don't know how many episodes it is ago by now, but we talked about it when Ninja switched, that if Mixer wanted to be a competitor to Twitch, they could use Ninja as a test, see how it goes, and then they would ultimately probably need to buy out more big streamers, because it's not enough to pull out one big guy. Twitch has way too much of a stranglehold on the industry, basically. And we said, then the question is, okay, who are they going to go for next, and how much is it going to be? And there you go. There's the next guy. Probably got a really sizable offer as well to consider it, Shroud. And like we talked about, the big winners in the end on this is the user.
Everyone.
Because there's competition, and competition is good, because it means if you're a Twitch streamer, you will get better terms eventually. If Mixer starts competing enough, Twitch needs to appeal more to you as a partner, or you're going to go stream on Mixer, especially if they start sending you offers. For the more casual streamers, even there, like it's from the ground up, right? Because the way the big streamers are made, they start somewhere, right? So if Mixer starts becoming the place where people go to start streaming, that's also going to hit Twitch. I mean, it's great you have the big people for now, but what about in 5 years, 10 years? We don't expect streaming to die. So, you want to keep getting in those new people. And that's just really good. As far as Shroud goes, I kind of have the same read on him as you do. It's very rewarding in a way, and very interesting to see, because a lot of the time when people talk about big streamers, what makes big streamers big is that they're really like entertaining, and there's different ways of being entertaining. The bit of Shroud that I've watched, he isn't like a complete like clown or mega overreacting to stuff for comedic value or something. He's just a really fucking good player, and he has a great streaming setup, and it's very smooth, and it looks great, and the design and everything of it is just very professionally done. And he plays with very skilled people, or has nice people that he has as part of his stream, and he just has really fucking good gameplay. So he made a name for himself through CSGO streaming, I believe, where he got really big. And then he transitioned to mainly other shooters that he plays. And it's great to see that, because I think sometimes people forget that a big part of the appeal in watching streamers is also watching people that are, really good at the game and not just funny. And that part of it matters too. It's a very obvious thing in, like, from a Dota standpoint. The really big streamers, for example, we have Gorg and Admiral Bulldog, who are also both really good at the game, but perhaps not at the absolute tier 1 level, where if somebody like, let's say, Crit is streaming, there is a very big difference between viewerships, and that's fine. Obviously, building brands and spending a lot of time and energy on it has a huge value. But Shroud is kind of both at once, right? He has that, like, really tight streaming schedule, streams a lot, and then he also, on top of that, he is a tier 1 player, kind of, right? I have limited knowledge, of course, but when he quit CSGO to go streaming, it wasn't because he couldn't play at the highest level, right? It was because,
I mean, mechanically speaking, I can say with full confidence, mechanically speaking, he is tier 1. Highest of tiers, for sure. IQ and all that stuff, that's impossible to tell because I haven't watched him play Counter-Strike any time recently. I haven't watched Counter-Strike professionally in a long time. But yeah, he's fucking good. Now, there is, chat's reminding me, and this is going to show you guys how little I know. Another streamer was moving named King Gathalion. I have no fucking clue who that is.
Never heard of that.
Am I an idiot?
But
what game does he play?
No idea who that is.
Like, here's the question for you, Cinder. Okay, so they have Ninja, they have Shroud, both FPS players, different games though, right? Shroud plays the more, like, I mean, Ninja plays Fortnite basically, and like the cartoony type shooters or whatever. I'm sure he plays other stuff as well, but that's what he's known for. Shroud is known for Counter-Strike, but now like PUBG, these more realistic shooters. Do you think they go after any strategy market, any card game market, personalities next? Do you think FPS is just the way to go? What do you think?
I think they mainly go after the big names. I don't think they care so much about the type of content they make or the game. They want the viewership, right? And they want the headlines. That's what they need, the attention brought toward their platform. And the best way to do it is to get the biggest people, right? Actually, it just came to mind for me. I actually think I have a really good analogy for who Shroud is in Dota. He would be Arteezy, basically, right? Arteezy isn't like super clowny or completely crazy or whatever. He's a guy who's playing really fucking good Dota. He's funny. He plays with good people, but he doesn't go like over the top or put, how to say it? I don't know. He doesn't put comedy first. Let's say that. It's not comedy first and foremost. It's gameplay first and foremost, and comedy second. And this isn't meant as an insult to other streamers, because, for example, I think somebody like Gorg doesn't put comedy first. I think in many instances Bulldog does, and that's fine. That's his, that's his brand and his style now. He doesn't care so much about playing super well anymore. He cares more about having a fun stream, and he plays with, way less skilled people. He fucks around a lot. And just
does he play with you a lot, Cinder?
Absolutely nothing wrong with that. No, absolutely not. Okay. But I'm way too good for that. Okay. That's obviously just different styles. I'm not saying one is better than the other. The reason it was just funny to, or like good to mention, was that the like idea of what makes streams entertaining is very different for different people. And to me, it's very enjoyable to watch people that are really good at a game, even if I don't get it. That's why I love watching tournaments in games I barely ever play, because it's cool to see people that are just really fucking good at what they do. And it doesn't only have to be about, having a laugh at somebody's expense or cracking jokes. Just good gameplay has a lot of value to a lot of people. And yeah, Arteezy for me would be the great example. Extremely popular streamer in Dota. Unfortunately, he doesn't stream very much, or well, maybe fortunately for me. But yeah, his gameplay is first, and then everything else is second. And I think that's kind of like Shroud did. And if Arteezy had gone full-time streaming, he would have been huge on that part. But obviously, he cares about competition first and foremost, and I completely respect that. Makes a lot of sense. That's the funny thing.
In Dota, a big reason that these players don't stream as much is because they get paid a shit ton already. In other games, maybe not so much. Like, there are fucking $30 million prize pools in other games. Getting 6th place sets you up the entire year in Dota. That's ridiculous. So different priorities, and obviously, it's not like he's switching the mixer, because he'd have to leave EG to do that, because I'm sure EG has Twitch contracts up the anus, left, right, and center. Yep.
There you go with the ass talk again. That didn't take very long, huh?
Well, what do you mean? That it's been an hour and 14 minutes? That's pretty good.
Personal best.
All right, moving on. I guess we're going to wrap up here, but I do want to say for next week, I know some things have happened about leaking Blizzard stuff. that we will not talk about because I want to talk about this in full next week because BlizzCon is happening this weekend, and I'm not even that big of a Blizzard game player anymore. Like Warcraft 3 was the biggest one, and Brood War, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been literally over a decade. I am so freaking excited to see what happens because they have fucked up every step of the way, and I just want to know what the next step is going to be. You know, will they redeem themselves in some fashion, or will they fuck up even harder somehow?
Okay, here's my analogy for this. I think it's like watching Formula One, right? There are people that watch Formula One that are hoping for crashes. That are like,
yes, that's true.
You just want the drama. And there's the people that watch because they're a fan of somebody or want them to do well in the race or just cheering for really good driving or whatever. What kind of BlizzCon viewer are you?
The crash guy.
You're the crash guy.
Yeah.
So you're not like particularly hoping that they will redeem themselves and plan some really big game like announcing Diablo 4 or
so here's
Warcraft 4 or something like this.
I mean, Warcraft 4 would be kind of cool. I don't think it would be successful because I think RTS is just kind of dead. I don't think you can redeem that kind of a game anymore.
You think it's dead?
I think it's on its. I mean, let's not say it's dead. It's been on a steady decline, and I don't see it ever picking up to where it used to be. That's probably.
Do you think you could make an RTS with elements of stuff that is in right now to help it out?
I mean, potentially, but Blizzard's never going to do it because they never do anything cool. At least not anymore.
Okay, well there you go.
I mean, here's
Let's
the
watch
thing,
some
right?
crashes, boys.
I mean, this is the other way that I'm looking at it. I know this isn't fair. Actually, it is. Fuck it. This is fair. Ever since Activision took over Blizzard, they've been complete garbage. We've talked about this before. This is my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for Cinder, although I know he agrees with me. I personally believe they do not deserve to be redeemed. They fucked up so bad in such obvious ways. Like the most obvious ways possible, repeatedly. They have it's like you take a fork and you stab yourself in the forehead, you take it out, and you keep stabbing yourself in the goddamn forehead because you're a goddamn idiot. That's Blizzard in a nutshell, in my opinion.
But you can't feel anything if there's nothing in there.
That's a great point. That's why they keep doing it.
So
You've wrapped it all up. That's actually beautifully done, Synderen. That makes perfect. That's the best analogy I've ever heard. So thank you. So next week we'll talk about BlizzCon. I'm very excited about that. But I want to end with this, Synderen.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the date will be? I want you to pick an exact date. So remember we had a prediction earlier. I want an exact date for this big Outlanders patch for Dota. Can I go first? Because I don't want you stealing my shit. I usually let you go first. Will you allow me this?
Okay, let me see. Yes. You can go first.
I am choosing November 25th, which is a Monday.
Oh.
It is the day after the MDL Major. The 25th.
That was very close to what I would have picked.
You're going to pick the day after?
I'm picking November 24th.
Oh, shit.
The day of? I think it comes out immediately after the tournament is over. Because people are so fucking hyped for it. And they might do the TI kind of thing they did where they released it, what's that now? 2 TIs ago or whatever. I think, because if you think about time zone, right? It's on the 24th in China.
No, you're right. Oh, no.
That would be the 24th in Europe in the morning, probably when the finals are played, and the 23rd in the US, correct?
Yeah.
So for me, it will probably be the 24th in the US.
It won't be the 23rd. It'll be 24th for us still. It'll just be really early in the morning.
Okay. Yeah, I think 24th. But yeah, we have the same idea. We both think it's coming out after the major, and we don't think it's both think it's coming out.
I'm going to say that, it could come out later in the day on the 24th, though. That is true. I was going to say it's not going to come out super, because it's going to be Valve time. I don't think it's going to be one of these, hey, we're releasing it for China. It's going to be US time. It always is. You're not going to release something this major that could have so many things that you need to fix and not have everybody at the office. So, okay.
Right.
I might have just gotten destroyed.
US morning 24th or US noon is very believable, I think.
Okay. Time zones got me again, it seems.
If I could give a second guess, I think my second guess would be something like mid-December.
Really?
As either it comes out right after the major or it's just not done. And then they stretch the timeline as much as they can. Because they said fall, and fall technically ends mid-December or late December or something. Because I don't see something like in betweenish where it's like, oh, it comes out on November 28th or something. Either it's done and people are fucking hyped right after the major. Because let's be honest here, the best, like, at least I think so, the best strategy here is to, if it's ready, release it as soon as possible after the major while all the hype is there and people are watching.
Yep.
That's where you get the biggest reach. So it's just a good business decision. That's when you drop that patch.
So here's the other. This is what is going to align with my strategy of picking the 25th. They announce everything the 24th, but it doesn't come out till the next day because that's when they're in the office on Monday. They'd have to be in the office on Sunday, which is not a thing.
That's a good point. It's a Sunday. I didn't think about that, actually. Yeah.
Let's hope to God Suns fans right. Team Suns fan, go activate.
Let's hope we're both wrong and it comes out in 3 days.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Let's be real. Okay, so have you watched In Bruges, Cinderin, or Joker?
Wait, is that no?
To both.
Yeah. No.
Thank you so much.
Wait, so why are we talking about Joker?
Because
is that in Bruges tier?
I can't put it in Bruges tier quite yet, but I do need to see it again. It was one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen for sure, easily. Top 3.
Okay, just like In Bruges, one of the best superhero movies you've seen.
No, that's the problem. That's one of the best movies ever, period. Top 5.
Without superheroes.
Without there's no super spoiler, there's no superhero in Bruges. Batman does not make an appearance at the end, guys. Sorry, if you're really into that stuff, don't watch In Bruges. It's a movie of class, not filth.
A sophisticated one.
Yes, it's very sophisticated. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening on all the podcast stuff. You know, I don't know if you're aware of this, Cinder, but this is available on Spotify. Contrary to popular belief, it is. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you next week. We say things that don't mean anything, but thanks for listening. Yeah.